4 episodes, 4 centuries. We've watched a teenage orphan build an empire, a king steal the world's most famous diamond, a people stop smoking overnight to defeat a British monopoly, and a dying Shah sign the first constitution in Iranian history. And we ended last episode with a cliffhanger. Something black was seeping up through the ground in southwest Iran, something that would make the great game look like a practice round. Welcome to episode 5, the 20th century, the century of shocks. In the next 10 minutes, 2 world wars, a CIA coup, a revolution that shook the planet, and an 8-year war that cost a generation, Iran's wildest century. Let's go! We left off in 1906 with Iran's first constitution and a brand new parliament, the Majlis. The mood was electric. Intellectuals were celebrating, merchants were hopeful, clerics who had supported the movement were cautiously optimistic. It lasted about 5 minutes. In 1907, Britain and Russia signed the Anglo-Russian Convention, secretly dividing Iran into spheres of influence. A Russian zone in the north, a British zone in the south, a neutral buffer in the middle. Iran was not consulted. Iran was not informed. Iran found out when everyone else did. Then the new Shah, Mohammad Ali Shah, decided he'd had enough of constitutional limits on his power. In June 1908, he ordered his Russian-commanded Cossack brigade to surround the Majlis building and bombard it with cannon fire. He dissolved parliament and arrested the constitutional leaders. But the constitutionalists fought back. Armed resistance erupted in Tabriz, in Gilan, in Isfahan. 2 years of civil war. And in 1909, the constitutionalists marched on Tehran, deposed Mohammad Ali Shah, and restored the constitution. It had survived. Barely. Again! In May 1908, just weeks before Mohammad Ali Shah shelled his own parliament, something happened in the southwestern region of Khuzestan that would overshadow every political event of the next century. A British company, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which you know today as BP, had been drilling for years on a concession granted by the desperate Qajar government. They'd almost given up. Then the ground opened up. Suddenly, Iran wasn't just a chess piece in the great game. It was the board itself. The British Navy, in the process of converting from coal to oil power, realized Iran was sitting on one of the largest oil reserves on the planet. Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, personally pushed for the British government to buy a controlling stake in APOC. They did in 1914. The terms of the original concession were staggeringly lopsided. Iran received a small royalty percentage, while Britain controlled operations, pricing, and profits. The oil beneath Iranian soil was making Britain's empire run, and Iran was seeing a fraction of the returns. World War I tore through Iran, even though Iran declared neutrality. Russian, British, and Ottoman forces all operated on Iranian territory, causing famine, disease, and chaos that killed an estimated 2 million Iranians. The Qajar government was powerless to stop any of it. Into this vacuum stepped a soldier. Reza Khan, a commander in the Iranian Cossack Brigade, staged a coup in 1921, took control of the government, and by 1925 had crowned himself Reza Shah Pahlavi, founding a new dynasty and ending the Qajar era. Reza Shah's project was modernization, fast, forced, and non-negotiable. He looked at Ataturk's Turkey transforming next door and decided Iran needed the same treatment. Railways were built, a national army was created, tribal autonomy was crushed, the legal system was secularized. He banned the veil for women and banned traditional male headwear, replacing both with Western styles by decree. He changed the country's official name from Persia to Iran in 1935. He was building a modern nation-state at speed, whether his population wanted each specific change or not. When World War II arrived and Reza Shah refused to expel German advisors from Iran, Britain and the Soviet Union invaded in 1941, deposed him, and sent him into exile. His son, a 21-year-old named Mohammad Reza, was placed on the throne. The second Pahlavi Shah had arrived. Mohammad Reza Shah spent his early reign as a relatively constitutional monarch. Genuinely so. And in this more open political environment, a remarkable figure rose through democratic elections to become prime minister in 1951. His name was Mohammad Mosaddegh. Mosaddegh looked at the Anglo-Iranian oil company, still operating on the original lopsided concession, and made a simple, radical argument. The oil beneath Iranian soil belongs to the Iranian people. His policy was nationalization. Take AIOC. Make it Iranian. The Majlis voted for it unanimously. Britain was furious. They imposed a devastating embargo, blockading Iranian oil exports and lobbying the world not to buy Iranian oil. Iran's economy began to buckle, but Mosaddegh refused to back down, and his international profile soared. Time magazine named him Person of the Year in 1951. Britain turned to America. They pitched Eisenhower's new CIA with a simple argument: Mosaddegh is opening the door to communism. In the Cold War context, that was all it took. Operation Ajax was approved. In August 1953, CIA and MI6 operatives organized street mobs, paid military officers, and ran a propaganda campaign that destabilized Mossadegh's government. On August 19th, the coup succeeded. Mosaddegh was arrested in his pajamas, tried for treason, and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. The 1953 coup did not just remove a prime minister, it removed Iran's chance at democratic self-determination at its most promising moment. The wound it created, the deep Iranian suspicion of American and British intentions, did not heal. It is still open today. After the coup, Mohammad Reza Shah ruled with increasing confidence and increasing autocracy. Oil money flowed. The White Revolution of 1963 brought land reform, women's suffrage, and literacy programs. Tehran was modernizing visibly. The Shah was on magazine covers worldwide. In 1971, the Shah threw what might be the most tone-deaf party in modern history: the 2,500-year celebration of the Persian Empire at Persepolis. Heads of state from around the world were flown in. Maxims of Paris catered the event. The cost estimates ran into hundreds of millions of dollars. Outside the palace gates, the Savak, his feared secret police, was imprisoning and torturing political opponents. The gap between the Iran the Shah was projecting to the world and the Iran that millions of Iranians were living in was becoming a chasm. The revolution didn't come from nowhere. It came from everywhere simultaneously. Leftists wanted democracy and social justice. Nationalists hadn't forgotten 1953. The religious establishment, led by Ayatollah Khomeini from exile in Paris, offered a framework that united the grievances under one banner. The protests of 1978 built through the year like a wave. General strikes paralyzed the economy. Millions filled the streets. The Shah, ill with cancer he was hiding from his own government, couldn't decide between crackdown and concession. He tried both, succeeded at neither. On January 16, 1979, Mohammad Reza Shah left Iran. He kissed a handful of Iranian soil at the airport, walked up the stairs of his plane, and never came back. 25 centuries of Iranian monarchy, from Cyrus the Great to the Pahlavis, ended at an airport departure gate. 2 weeks later, Ayatollah Khomeini landed in Tehran. 5 million people lined the streets. He was asked by a journalist on the plane what he felt returning to Iran after 15 years in exile. He said, nothing. Whatever he meant by it, the revolution was complete. The new Islamic Republic was barely established when the next catastrophe arrived. In September 1980, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Iran, calculating that the revolutionary chaos had left Iran militarily vulnerable. It was the opening move of the longest conventional war of the 20th century. What followed was 8 years of industrial-scale warfare that neither side could win, and neither side would end. Trench warfare, chemical weapons used by Iraq against Iranian soldiers and civilians. human wave attacks, cities bombed, oil facilities destroyed, a war that killed somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million people. The West largely backed Iraq. The United States provided Saddam with intelligence and looked away from the chemical weapons use. Iran fought with revolutionary fervor, waves of volunteers, and the painful memory that the outside world had chosen sides against them. Again, in 1988, Khomeini accepted a UN ceasefire, describing it as drinking poison. The borders hadn't changed. Nothing had been gained. Everything had been lost. A generation of Iranians had grown up knowing nothing but war, revolution, and isolation. The 1990s brought something Iran desperately needed: a pause. Post-war reconstruction. President Rafsanjani rebuilt infrastructure. President Khatami, elected in 1997 in a landslide, spoke of civil society, dialogue between civilizations, and reform. Young Iranians, the largest youth population in Iranian history, were logging onto the internet, watching satellite TV, and asking questions. The century ended with Iran suspended between two worlds: the revolutionary Islamic Republic it had become, and the globalized, connected, modernizing world pressing against its borders from every direction. The tension between those two identities would define the next century. 5 episodes, 5 centuries, and here we are. Let's take one last look at what we've actually been watching. Empires rose and fell around Iran. The Ottomans? Gone. The Mughals? Gone. The British Empire? Gone. The Soviet Union? Gone. The Safavids? The Qajars? The Pahlavis? All gone. Iran is still here, not unchanged. Iran of 2000 looks nothing like Iran of 1500. The language evolved. The religion shifted. The borders moved. The governments came and went with remarkable frequency and occasional violence. But something persisted. The poetry, the architecture, the sense that this place, this culture, this identity is irreducible, cannot be absorbed, cannot be erased. From a 14-year-old orphan with a red hat and an impossible dream to a nation of 80 million people navigating the most complicated geopolitical position on the planet, this has been Iran. Not a simple story, not a comfortable one, but one of the most extraordinary stories the human species has produced. Thank you for watching 100 Years of Iran, all 5 centuries of it. Iran's story isn't over. It never really is. But that, as they say, is another series.